洱海是我们的母群湖，保护好以后才可以持续去发展。
What happens when a country shuts down an entire tourist economy just to save a lake? Not reduce it, not regulate it. Shut it down. No more Instagram views, no more rooftop bars, no more multi-million-dollar guest houses. In 2017, that's exactly what happened in southwest China. A government crackdown unlike anything the region had ever seen swept across a place once described as heaven on earth. Overnight, bulldozers replaced bellhops. Café patios turned into demolition zones. Streets once filled with tourists sipping tea were suddenly silent. Why? Because a lake was dying. A lake so sacred, locals called it their mother. Erhai Lake, nestled between the snow-capped Kangshan Mountains and the ancient city of Dali, was once a freshwater jewel. Crystal clear, biologically rich and spiritually revered, it sustained life in Yunnan for generations. But when unchecked tourism collided with fragile ecology, disaster struck. And what followed was one of the most ambitious and controversial environmental rescue missions in the world. The result? A transformation so extreme, so unexpected, that even seasoned scientists were left speechless. But this isn't just about China. If you've ever wondered whether a dying ecosystem can truly be saved, or if governments ever take environmental collapse seriously, what happened here will shock you. Because in the battle between economy and ecology, China picked the lake, and what they found beneath its surface was worse than anyone imagined. But that's not even the wild part. The real story is what happened after. Erhai wasn't just another scenic stop on a tourist map. It was a lifeline, especially for the bi-ethnic minority, who had lived beside its shores for centuries. They fished its waters. They farmed with its water. They prayed by its banks. Ceremonies, festivals, even funerals often involved the lake in some way. To the Bai people, Erhai wasn't a body of water. It was a body of memory, a source of food, identity, and spiritual continuity. But that harmony began to fracture in the 2000s. As China's middle class exploded, millions began traveling domestically. Dali and the Erhai region, known for its mountain views, cobbled streets, and lakefront charm, became a magnet. By 2016, Erhai was receiving over 40 million visitors a year. That's more than the entire population of California squeezed into an area smaller than one of its counties. And it didn't take long before things spun out of control. Small villages quickly turned into pop-up Instagram towns. What were once rice fields became rooftops and resorts. Guest houses sprang up almost overnight. Bars, boutiques, coffee shops, it was a boomtown. But behind the filters and travel vlogs, a toxic truth was brewing. Most of these new businesses weren't connected to any sewage system. Their waste shampoo, kitchen grease, detergents, and even raw human waste was flowing directly into the lake. And Erhai, though vast and majestic on the surface, was fragile underneath. To make things worse, farmers near the lake, encouraged by the rising demand, had increased use of chemical fertilizers for faster, shinier produce. And the lake began to change. At first, the changes were subtle. Fishermen who once brought in baskets of silver fish came home empty-handed. Locals noticed a strange scent in their drinking water. Tourists started leaving poor reviews. Beautiful view, but the water smells weird. Then the algae came. Thick, green mats of cyanobacteria began surfacing in the spring and summer months, stretching across large swaths of the lake like spilled paint. These algal blooms were toxic, fueled by the nitrogen and phosphorus-rich wastewater pouring in daily. They choked off oxygen, fish suffocated, aquatic plants withered. Water clarity dropped to just 0.5 feet in some areas. The lake's most iconic aquatic plant, Otilia acuminata, native only to Erhai, began to vanish. Locals called it a slow death. A scientist studying the lake's biology described it bluntly. We were witnessing an invisible collapse, a silent crash of an ecosystem. Still, the building continued. Tour buses kept arriving. The economy was booming, and no one wanted to be the one to stop it. Until the lake couldn't take it anymore. On March 1st, 2017, the government made a choice, a bold one. A total environmental lockdown was declared. Not just a restriction, a full halt. Over 2,400 businesses were ordered to shut down immediately. Bulldozers leveled illegal guest houses. Concrete fences were torn out. Metal pipes that pumped sewage straight into the lake were sliced and sealed. New construction was banned within miles of the shoreline. Tourist permits were frozen, Hotel licenses revoked. It was stunning, swift, and severe. In a single year, 40,000 tons of trash and sludge equal to the weight of 6,500 elephants were pulled from the lake and its tributaries. Dredging boats operated 24/7. Divers pulled up abandoned toilets, car tires, old appliances, things no one expected to find beneath the once clear water. Local communities were in shock. Many lost their livelihoods overnight, but others saw it differently. "This is what it takes to save a dying mother," one elder reportedly said. Once the pollution was removed, the real engineering began. A 19-mile underground sewage pipeline was built, designed to intercept all residential and commercial waste before it could reach the lake. More than a dozen pumping stations and advanced treatment plants were added. They didn't just fix the old infrastructure, they reimagined the entire system. Clean water was recycled for irrigation. Waste sludge was converted to safe fertilizer. Runoff from farms was redirected through filter channels and sediment traps. But something was still missing. Technology alone wasn't enough to keep Air High clean. It needed nature's help. Thousands of acres around the lake were rewilded. Swaths of shoreline were converted into artificial wetlands, engineered ecosystems that mimic nature's way of cleaning water. These wetlands absorbed runoff. They filtered toxins. They trapped sediment. And most importantly, they invited life back in. Native grasses and reeds reappeared. Herons stalked the shallow waters. Dragonflies danced over the reeds. Frogs returned. Even the riverbanks changed. Once lined with cement and trash, they were now home to butterflies, birds, and wildflowers. Birdwatching towers replaced beer gardens. Meditation trails were built where noisy roads once ran. Sensors were installed everywhere measuring pH levels, turbidity, nutrient concentrations, a constant digital guardian watching over the lake. By 2020, just 3 years after the crackdown, something unexpected happened. Water clarity skyrocketed. In some areas, you could see 7.5 feet down a level not seen in decades. Local fishermen began reporting something astonishing. They were catching golden line barbel, a native fish believed to have been extinct in Air High since the 1980s. And not just a few, they were spawning. Soon after, crustaceans returned. So did migratory birds. Even underwater plants that only grow in pristine conditions began to flourish again. Air High, the dying lake, wasn't just surviving, it was thriving. Air High's revival didn't go unnoticed. Scientists, conservationists, and environmental officials from around the world came to study the Air High model. Delegates from countries like Kenya, India, and Thailand toured the area, hoping to bring the approach home. China's own Ministry of Ecology gave Air High the highest possible water quality rating for 3 years in a row. But perhaps the greatest change wasn't ecological, it was cultural. Tourism came back, but on new terms. Ecotourism replaced mass tourism. Rooftop bars gave way to tea gardens and nature lodges. New businesses had to pass strict environmental audits. Locals received education on watershed health. Children were taught the history of Air High's collapse and its revival in school. Farmers shifted from high-fertilizer crops to organic blueberries, plums, and cherries. A local Air High brand of produce now carries a lake-safe label. For the people of Dali, the lake wasn't just a natural wonder anymore. It was a shared responsibility. So what does this mean for the rest of us? Whether you live beside a lake, a forest, a coastline, or even just care about the world your children will inherit, Air High holds a message that even when destruction seems irreversible, it's not. Even when governments seem paralyzed, they can act. And even when a place seems dead, it can come back to life. But it doesn't happen by accident. It starts with one hard decision: to care more than you fear inconvenience, to put long-term healing over short-term profit, to believe that what's broken isn't a lost cause, it's an opportunity. Air High is living proof, not just of what nature can do when given the chance, but of what people can do when they choose to protect it.